We're looking at, actually want to look at verse 14 tonight. Matthew chapter 11, verse 14. Jesus, of course, is speaking here to the multitude, so we would look at this as in the form of a sermon. And he is vindicating the ministry of John the Baptist. He's done it through highlighting his personal integrity. And then he gets into this prophetic instruction section. And in that, of course, he says that John is a prophet. He proclaims he was more than a prophet in the sense that he was the preparer, as he gives in verse 10. And then as you move down into verse 11, he begins to describe the participation that John the Baptist had in the ministry of the coming of the Messiah. And he describes it like this: "Assuredly I say to you, among those born of women, there's not risen one greater than John the Baptist. But he who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." So he sets up a contrast. Over on this side is those who are born among women. Among those who are born, among those born of women, there is not risen one greater than John the Baptist. That's over here. Over here on this side is he who is least is in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. So you've got the provinces, which is those born of women, are over here, which is literally the human race, which includes all of us. And in the context in which he's speaking, it's the old covenant. Over here is the kingdom of heaven. You don't get from this position being in the human race. Obviously, not everybody in the human race is in the kingdom of heaven. Well, how do you become a part of the kingdom of heaven? It's not taking on certain forms. It's not joining a certain club. It's not admitting to certain ethical standards. It's not taking on a certain belief system. It is a radical internal nature change. To get from the human race into the kingdom of God, it is so radical, the Bible calls it born again. The Bible calls it those kind of radical terms, which is like going from death to life. It's being raised again. It's being crucified with Christ. It's a strong, radical change. So you have to have this nature change because a whole new species of humanity are being born out of this business of the kingdom. And the kingdom is not just a location. It's not God here who decides, I want a kingdom. He builds a kingdom and then invites you to come in. Nobody is in the kingdom but the human race and God. In other words, it's the union of the two that make up the kingdom. So God can't be the kingdom on his own, at least he's decided not to, and man can't be the kingdom certainly on his own, but when the two of them come together, a new creature, new species is created called the kingdom. And it's the intermixing of those two. It's not that you ever become God. He clears that up very clearly. But it's the intermixing of those two that create this new species of humanity. In fact, he says, let's look over here to the Old Covenant, which was all based, of course, on performance. It's God's over there, I'm over here. He gives us a list of rules, tells us what to do. And who did that the best? John the Baptist. That's what he says. In fact, Jesus said John the Baptist was the greatest man that ever was born in the human race. Here he says there's not risen one greater than John the Baptist. So obviously there's 1 to 10. John the Baptist is a 10. Many are number 5s, many are number 2s. Most of us are down on number 1. But John did better at keeping the law, doing what God wanted him to do, had opportunities that he fulfilled way beyond anybody else in their performance realm. So he's obviously a number 10. Now, over here in the kingdom, what's the dynamic that's going on over here? He says the category over here is not the greatest, which is John the Baptist. Over here, it's the least. Well, who is the one who's in the category of the least? Well, it's he, which is generic. So anybody in the kingdom that you want to name is in this category. Because the kingdom of God doesn't have 1 to 10. The kingdom of God only has ones. Over here in the performance level, there's 1 to 10, but not in the kingdom of God. Everybody over here is least. Well, how could that possibly be that everybody would be least over here? Because the design of the kingdom is that you would never source, do, perform. That's the basis over here of the human race, the old covenant. It was performance. God's over there, I'm over here, I got to pull this off. So I have to produce this. It's performance-oriented. Over here, it's the least. It's never designed for you to perform. It was always designed for relationship, that you would be so intimate with him that he could do something through you that you couldn't do for yourself. Therefore, you're always least because you never perform it. You always have to say he did it. So it isn't based on talent. So there's no competition in talent, competition in who does what, competition in who's better than who, because nobody's better than anybody, because we're all least, because God is doing it all. Now he says, verse 12, from the days of John the Baptist until now, that sets up a time parameter. The time parameter is John the Baptist shows up and begins to preach about the kingdom. What is he doing? He's announcing the presence of the kingdom. So as he announces the presence of the kingdom, Jesus says, from the first announcement, oh, the kingdom is here, to the moment Jesus is speaking in this passage, in that time bracket, he says, something is going on. What is it? The kingdom of heaven suffers violence. It's in the passive voice, which means the kingdom is not doing this. It's being done to the kingdom. And what is being done to the kingdom? It is suffering violence. In other words, there's a group of people who are trying to take the kingdom by violence. What does that mean? The word violent, literally in the Greek, means to press, to pressure, to repel, to go after. So he says there's a whole group of people who want the kingdom. They want it. In fact, it's the old covenant people. They've been dreaming about it for years. I mean, their prophets have preached about it. I mean, hey, they've been looking forward to it. Every time they offered a sacrifice lamb, it pointed to the kingdom. They want the kingdom. But you see, all of their lives, they have been in the old covenant, which was based upon performance. 1 to 10. I'm a number 5. Why? I do more than you do. That's always been the methodology. Keep the law, stop that, do that, come on time, get that done. Hey, tithe that money, do that. That's always been the way you got things done, was to do it. If you want something done, do it yourself. That's always been the operation of the old covenant. Now we're into a new covenant which has a whole new basis. And he says this old covenant group is literally coming and wanting to get into the kingdom, but they're trying to get in with the old method. Interesting dynamic. You know what he says about them? Look at the end of verse 12. And the violent take it by force. Now note in your passage, verse 12, the kingdom of heaven suffers violent, meaning to press, that's a verb, and the violent, that's the same verb turned into a noun. So the ones who are pressing take it by force. Now you would think the word force would be the same as the word violent, but it's not. It's literally a word that means to steal. So he says, you know what's going on here? A whole new deal is set up over here. A whole brand new kind of operation. The basis of the operation of the old covenant was get it done, do it, performance, self-sourced. That's the methodology. Now a kingdom has come where everybody's least, and the reason they're least is because they got a whole new source and don't need to do anything. That is, God is sourcing them, and it's the intermixing of God and man until their energy, their abilities, their flow, everything about them, everything that's being accomplished through them is literally spawned, produced, overwhelmingly made by the very Spirit of God that's within them. So they're living out of the generating wonder of the Spirit of God. So they're all least, and God gets all the credit. So a whole new basis of operation. Now this group over here is trying to get into the kingdom and take the kingdom by the methodology of performance and doing, and you know what they're doing. They're trying to steal the kingdom. They're a bunch of thieves. Well, I'm doing my best, you thief. Well, I'm trying real hard, you thief. Well, I'm living my life for Christ, you thief. You're a thief. Because you're using old covenant methodology to try to take the kingdom. Now he says, if you have a question mark in your mind about that being true, let me tell you why it's true. Verse 13. For, which is a Greek word gar, which gives you the idea of for this reason. Let me tell you why it's true. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. Now, there's a time bracket again. Until John, what does that mean? Well, John announced the kingdom. So up until the time, the law and the prophets, up until the time that John announced the kingdom is here, and this new deal started, all this that was in the old covenant, up till the time of the start of this new covenant, all that time, law and the prophets, all the law, that's what he says. All the prophets, that's what he says. You mean including the Ten Commandments? That's what he says. You mean the judicial law? That's what he says. You mean the ceremonial law? That's what he says. The moral law? That's what he says. All the prophets? That's what he says. All of that was up until this time when the new arrived, indicating that all of that old covenant is now gone. Oh, not gone in the sense of destroyed, not gone in the sense of burned up, not gone in the sense of annihilated, gone in the sense of fulfilled. It's been sucked into the new. It's like ABCs have been sucked into reading. See, ABCs used to be important, but not anymore. Well, they are important. Well, they're not gone. Well, they're still there. Oh, but I don't even think about them because I read. And I used to have to concentrate on them and sing the ABC song, but not anymore. Because it's all been fulfilled here. So this over here, the doing, the performance, doesn't even exist. What exists now is, oh, I'm leased, and an intimate relationship with him. Something is happening in my life that takes me beyond what I can perform. Which is phenomenal. So the reason this group over here, when they try to take the kingdom by pressing it, by performance, by old covenant methodology, the reason they're thieves is because that doesn't exist anymore. This is all there is. Verse 14. And if you are willing to receive it, he is Elijah who is to come. If you are willing to receive it. By the way, it isn't there. It's just if you are willing to receive. In other words, if you are open, if you are seeking, if you're locked down, if you're narrow-minded, if you've already made up your mind, if you're already stuck, if you've already locked it all up, if you've already taken it and put it in a package and put a bow on top and put it on a shelf, if you've already sealed yourself, if you've already closed your mind, if you've already said, hey, I've made that up, I'm done. See, if you aren't willing to be flexible, if you aren't seeking, if you aren't open, but if you are, 4-year-old, Sunday morning, comes to church. Oh, his lower lip is on his shoes. Got tears in his eyes. His dad's dragging him into church. Kid doesn't want to come. His dad gives him time out in the corner. What's his problem? His dad didn't get him a Happy Meal before church. We look at him and say, he's a 4-year-old. In fact, church goes by, and after church is over, oh, he's running around, he's playing with the kids, he's forgot all about it. And we look at him and say, 4-year-olds. It's the way they are. We understand that. Old covenant. 4-year-olds. What do 4-year-olds know? 4-year-old stuff. Performance. Don't do that. Stop that. I'll sit you in the corner. Back in my day, I'll take my belt off and beat the living daylights out of you. Four-year-olds. Forty-year-old comes to church on Sunday morning. Lower lip, it's on his shoes. Why? He didn't get his Happy Meal. We say, what? Go sit in the corner. You don't sit 40-year-olds in the corner. No, you can't sit 40-year-olds in a corner. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. I want you to follow this closely. It's interesting that verse 14, this Elijah thing, he is Elijah who is to come. See, all of that is based on the last book of the Old Testament. In fact, the last verses of the Old Testament. They based it all on that. And you can read it. It's Malachi chapter 4. And here's what it says in verse 5 and 6, the last two verses of the Old Testament, which are really easy to find. He says, the prophet says, behold, I will send you Elijah, the prophet. Oh, that's good. And when's he going to come? Before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Good night. That's the wrap-up. I know. That's the judgment. You're right on that. Oh, he's going to sit us in the corner. This is what's coming. Yeah, Elijah's going to come before that happens. And verse 6, get these words, he will turn the hearts of the father to the children and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the earth with a curse. Now get the wordage. The hearts of the father to the children. He will turn the hearts of the father to the children and the hearts of the children to their fathers. Elijah's going to come. When's he going to come? Before the wrap-up. Now, there's a lot of controversy about this verse and about this whole section. Part of the controversy is whether Elijah, John the Baptist, was really Elijah after all. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. A lot of controversy about that. In other words, if we're looking, is Elijah still supposed to come? Are we waiting for Elijah? Was Jesus, yeah, he came maybe in the spirit of Elijah, but he really wasn't the Elijah guy, and all of that didn't apply to this prophecy, and this prophecy is still yet to be fulfilled. In fact, there's many Bible scholars who really believe that Elijah is supposed to come yet. And you realize that Elijah never died. Got in his chariot, and he went off. Now, what happened to his body? Well, he took it with him, I guess. Well, what happened to his body? Was it glorified like Jesus' body? I don't know. Did he lose his body? Did it decay as he went? I don't know. You figure it out. But he didn't die. So if he didn't die and he still, he could come back pretty easy, because you wouldn't even have to raise him from the dead, because the boy didn't die. So that'd be neat. So he's back. In fact, there was another guy who was the same way, Enoch. He just went out walking with God, and finally God said, well, you're closer to my place than yours, so come on. So away they went. And he never died. What happened to his body? I don't know. Did he take it with him? I guess. Was it glorified like Jesus' body was? I don't know. I don't know. But there's two of them. In fact, some people say that what's going to happen is, in the final wrap-up of this, you know what's going to take place. Elijah, the real Elijah, the prophet Elijah, who never died, and Enoch, who never died, are going to come back, and they're going to be the two witnesses. And brother, when they show up, woo, we're into it. Judgment is here. Well, what do you believe about that? I don't know. Is that the way it is? I have no idea. It's all speculation. When's it going to take? Beats me. When's it going to happen? I don't know. It's really fun to write books about that stuff because then after a few years you know it isn't true, so you have to write another one, and you've got double writing that way. Because the circumstances change and we adjust it all. Because there's all of this stuff about prophecy that you can't prove. You make a good case and it sounds, and we say, oh. But then it all shifts. And what would happen if you just stick with the facts? What we really do know. Well, that would be interesting. And not speculate on what we don't know and can't figure out. Well, what is it that we really know? Let me give you 3 facts. Number one fact that we absolutely know is presence of the last days. Presence of the last days. See, there's this strong, overwhelming biblical belief and concept that the last days, a period of time called the last days, starts with the coming of Jesus. And when Jesus shows up, woo, we're in the last days. That's a factual, biblical proposition. In fact, you can find all kinds of scriptures about this. Let me just read you one out of Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2. It says, "Now it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established on top of the mountains and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it." The wrap-up. In fact, in Hebrews 1, it's interesting that he said, and we've quoted this so much around here, he said that God has spoken in a variety of ways and through a variety of methods, but in these last days that we're in, last days, biblical period of time. In fact, it's really significant to me in the study of Acts that you got Pentecost taking place, and right after Pentecost happens, this guy by the name of Peter stands up to explain the whole thing and quotes the prophecy of Joel that starts like this, "And it shall come to pass in the last days, says God, I will pour out my Spirit." So the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, the coming of Jesus, the outpouring of the Spirit is all taking place in the last days. Biblical fact. No guess, no speculation. Now, if that's true, that would mean if the last day starts with the coming of Jesus, that would mean, woo, we're in the last days, and we've been in them for 2,000 years. Isn't that a bummer? See, I don't want last days to go on that long. I want last days to be a month. Then I could forget all about the carbs and just drink all the Cokes I want, and I could just have a big time. See, I don't want last days, 2,000 years of last days. That's ridiculous, isn't it? Now, evidently, John the Baptist introduced the new covenant, which was the beginning of the last days. Biblical fact. Number 2, biblical fact. Preparation of the last days. Evidently, Jesus believed that John the Baptist was the Elijah guy. Oh, it's just a couple pages, but Matthew chapter 17. They're coming down from the Mount of Transfiguration. And as they're on their way down, the disciples are talking. And Jesus says, listen, don't want you to talk about this. Shut your mouth about this vision. Don't you dare preach a sermon on it, because you don't have a clue what you're talking about, and who knows what you'll preach out of this one. For Moses and Elijah and Jesus have been transfigured right before their very eyes. Jesus has been transfigured, and Moses and Elijah have come down. And they've had conversations, and these 3 disciples have been in on it. So he says, keep still. And they said, you're right. We do have some questions. One question we have, Jesus, is we know you're the Messiah. We don't have any problem with that. But we know that before you can do your thing, the Elijah guy has to come. He's the forerunner. So if we get the idea, Jesus, that you're just treading water, you're just kind of hanging around, you're just messing around with some poor people, feeding some hungry folks, and doing some stuff like that, just to, have something to do. And then finally, when Elijah comes, you'll move in and, do what really needs to be done. Rome, you're out of here. Caesar, you're down, boy. You're going to do that kind of thing. So you're just waiting for Elijah to come. When is he going to come? Jesus said, listen to this verse 12. I say to you, Elijah has already come. Oh. Well, that solves that problem, doesn't it? Elijah has already come. The prophecy of Malachi, chapter 4, is already fulfilled. He's already come, and they did not know him, but did to him whatever they wished. Likewise, the Son of Man is about to suffer at their hands. Listen to this, listen to this. Then the disciples understood. He spoke to them of John the Baptist. Oh, brother, we got his name wrong in the bulletin. So that guy, Elijah guy, was really, John the Baptist was the Elijah guy? That's what Jesus said. That's what Jesus said. In fact, if you look at Luke chapter 1, this Luke guy, he writes this stuff about John. He says, he will also, in verse 17, he will also go before him in the spirit and power of Elijah, now get this, to turn the hearts of the father to the children. Oh, that's the language of that prophecy in Malachi, isn't it? Oh, man. So evidently, fact, we're in the last days, fact, John the Baptist really was Elijah and did fulfill that prophecy. So we're not waiting on anything. Fact number 3, the present last days, meaning today. Just want to announce to you, I believe there's a heaven and a hell. I believe they're a real place. I believe that there is going to be a place called heaven. A place, location. I believe there's a place called hell. I believe people will actually go there. Not supposed to, but they will. So I actually believe that Jesus is coming the second time. Really believe that. I do believe that. I believe he's coming the second time. And I believe there will be a wrap-up of this whole thing. In the Old Covenant, I want you to follow this. This is intriguing to me. In this Old Covenant structure, John the Baptist is a number 10. Why? Well, he did better than everybody else. Why? It was based on performance. God's over there, I'm over here. God says, I want you to do this. John the Baptist did it better than anybody else did it. Number 1, he had a Nazirite vow. Joel's trying to copy him. Never got his hair cut. Never touched the dead thing and didn't drink coffee. No strong drink. So those were the three. See, he did this better. Can you comprehend that? He performed this thing out better than anybody else because that was the basis of this Old Covenant. There's a verse, just listen to this. It's an Old Testament, Old Covenant verse. He says, here was their concept. For he is coming to judge the earth. He shall judge the world with righteousness and the people with his truth. See, they had the concept that God was a judge. He is, okay. In fact, he was a judge unlike the other gods because he was a God who judged with righteousness and truth. Oh, that's unusual. Because all the other gods were fickle. They got out of bed on the wrong side sometimes. The whole Greek mythology, you know them. If you've ever read that stuff, they're a whole bunch of mean, nasty gods. Well, they're just like us, only they got God powers. And they play tricks on each other, and it's basically tricks on man. Oh, they love to just, oh, you're going to have a bad day. Why? I didn't do anything. Doesn't matter. Bad day. See, hey, I'll mess your hair up. See, that's it. They just did that kind of stuff just out of meanness, just for fun, just to see what. So there's these but not our God. See, our God is absolutely righteous, absolutely fair. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Our God knows the inside motive of the heart. Our God judges from fairness. So their concept, follow this, their concept was, this is 4-year-old concept now. Here's the rules. You've been disobedient. You sit in the corner for 5 hours. That's your penalty. See, you break the law, I'll take the ruler and slap your hands. If you break this law, 2 slaps. Wham, wham. That's the way you treat 4-year-olds. Because you got the law. They didn't do right. You know what Paul said? Paul was preaching to the boys in Athens, talking about the unknown God, and said, as he went through this history of it, he said, this God of ours, what was back here, and what the old King James Version said, winked at, overlooked. Why did he overlook it? God overlooked lots of things in the old covenant. Why? Because you were 4 years old. Not now. Why? You're 40, man. Come on, this has all been sucked into this. And the basis for a 4-year-old is you look at him and say, don't do that, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stuff on the coffee table. If you do, time out. See, you've got these rules and you line him up, and when he breaks the rules, you go to your room. Old covenant. But the whole basis has changed now. What's the basis now? Intimacy. Relationship. There aren't any rules. What? That's what he says. All the law and all the prophets have been sucked into this. And now the whole basis is intimacy. The whole basis is I'm least, but oh, he who is great has come and sourced me and filled me and is doing something in me I can't do. And in the merger, in the infusion, in the togetherness, in the intermixing of God and man into one person, in the flow of his nature and my nature, not that you become God. No, why? Because you're least, man, and you're always least. But it's the infusion of the God who's come to fill you with his very nature, and he has come, and in filling you, a whole new relationship is set up. And that kind of relationship, you don't time out in the corner. This is a 40-year-old deal now. Well, you're saying there isn't any punishment. Didn't say that. I'm saying God isn't going to punish you. Come on, we've talked about this before. What do you mean God isn't going to punish me? Doesn't need to. Why? Because the whole basis has changed. See, if you got rules, don't touch the hot stove, don't, hey, time out. Then you have these slap, because you got the rules. 4-year-old. But we're not into that now. In the new covenant, we're into a relationship, a whole new basis. We're 40 years old. And friend, the dynamic of it is not the same. So there are no rules. There is no punishment. God is not going to punish you. Can I quote you on that, Manley? Absolutely. God is never, never, never going to punish you. Never. You get up in the middle of the night. It's pitch dark. You start walking. Oh, you stubbed my toe. Oh, man. Just broke my toe. Oh, man. Oh, walked into a door. Oh, good night. Got a black eye. Oh, just knocked over the lamp. Broke the light bulb. Oh, just stepped in the glass. Oh, cut my feet. Oh, you know what's happening? The light is punishing me. I didn't turn it on and it's mad. That is the stupidest thing I ever heard of. Isn't that the dumbest? God is light. I know. I'm walking in darkness. I'm ruining my body. I'm destroying myself. Oh no, I've ended up in hell in the darkness. Well, God's mad at me. The light is mad at you. When you walked in darkness and stubbed your toe, what are you talking about? He was yelling in your ear, turn the light on, boy, turn the light on. And you want to tell me he punished you? That's crazy. Isn't it interesting? Everywhere you go in the New Testament, you see this. I am the vine, you are the branch. Oh, why? I'm receiving the life from the vine. Oh, yes. I've got the leaves of the vine. I'm bearing the fruit of the vine. Yeah, you know, I think I'd rather be on my own. Oh, I'm withering. I'm dying. I'm dead. Will the vine punish me? What? The vine kept yelling, get back here, get back here, get back here. What do you do with the dead branch? You burn it. Is the vine punishing the branch? Doesn't need to. The whole business of hell and damnation, friend, is not a result of God punishing you. It's a result of you wouldn't stick with the vine. Duh. Wheat and tares. Listen to the parables. Wheat and tares, they're crowing. Oh, don't bother the tares. Why? You'll disturb my wheat. Hey, I love my wheat too much. Leave the tares alone. So they both grow in the church. Oh, now it's full blown. Oh, there's the tare. There's the wheat. Hey, take the wheat. Woo, I love you, wheat. What do you do with the poisonous tare? You burn it. You can't eat it. What? Are you mad at tares? No. You're not mad at tares. Does the farmer go down to the coffee shop and say, oh, this has been a great year. I burned 150 barrels, tons of chaff. Oh, it was great. I burned it all. No. He doesn't talk about chaff. What's he talking about? Oh, you should see the wheat this year. Oh, my wheat, man. I got it. Oh, it's in the barn, buddy. It's in the barn, buddy. I'm telling you, my wheat. Oh, chaff is. You can be chaff if you want to. We're not mad at chaff. Is this making any sense to you? Here's my favorite. Told you this before, but it's this great big room, no windows. Great big building, no windows. One door, loudspeakers. Hundreds of millions of people are milling around. One by one, their names are called. And you have to go in there and you never come out. It's serious. My name is called. See you guys. I go into the room. It's the judgment hall of God. I walk right up to him. I say, hey, God, I want you to get out my file. I know you keep records. I know that. Hey, I'm not an idiot. I know you keep records of everything I've done. I want you to get my file out because I want to explain some things to you. I don't know what you've heard, but I want to explain some things to you that you may not. There's some circumstances about some of that we need to clear up. He says, your file. Where is your file? Let me see. Your file. Where is your file? Oh, your file. Your file. Get my file, God. I want to discuss this. I've got some defense. Get my file. Where's your file? Oh, I know. I threw it in the trash. I just threw it in the trash. It's all taken care of. Go right out that door, Manley. Hey, on the left is party hats. On the right is Diet 7-Up. And there's party whistles, too. And they're having a party out back. The rock and roll band's are playing. Go have a big time, boy. I said, God, no. I want you to get out my file. I want to explain some things to you. Get in the trash. Dig it out. Get my file out here. I tell you, I'm not as bad as that. There was some circumstance. Just Manley, just go out the door. Get out my file, God. He said, well, listen, you can't stay here. Go out that door, right there, that door. Have a party. I'm not going, God. Well, you can't stay here. What's the other option? Well, that door there. Where's that go? The basement. It's where party poopers go. Yeah, because you're down in the basement, you can hear all this pounding of the feet of the dancing going on. Oh, and you just sit down there. Oh, there. And you hear all that rock and roll. And they spilled a Diet 7-Up, and some of it's dripping down there. Oh. Because you can have party poopers at the party. See, you could. And you sit down in the basement. Oh, is God punishing you? Begged you to go to the party. Begged you. Begged you. Begged you. Jeremiah read us this verse. Let me read it to you. It's actually John chapter 5, verse 22. Interesting verses. For the Father judges no one, and has committed all judgment to the Son, that all should honor the Son just as they honored the Father. And he who does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. Listen to this. Listen to this. Listen to this. Wait for it. Listen to this. Most assuredly I say to you, he who hears my word and believes in me who sent me, he has everlasting life. Has. Now. And get this. And shall not come into the judgment. But has passed from death to life. Well, Jesus hasn't come the second time. I know. We're already into the party. Isn't that? We've already crossed the line. Well, now, when did the judgment take place? Did I sleep through it? Because there's another verse that says, now, Jesus said, now is the world judged. The cross was the judgment. And I've embraced it. This is a whole new deal. This is a whole new deal. We're growing up. We're not 4-year-olds anymore. You do that, God will get you. This is about relationship. We're all leased. We're sourced by Him. We're in the vine. Everlasting life is ours, burning through our bloodstream now. Jesus, my. Am I open, willing to receive? Because if I'm open and willing to receive, Elijah, John the Baptist was Elijah who is to come. And I'm not looking for anything else. For the kingdom is here. Not a location, not a place. The kingdom, you, Jesus, and me in embrace. And in that embrace, you energize, aliven, quicken, regenerate, flow, produce, cause, source. My life on a whole level of living that's beyond all that I tried to do. I never did reach the number 10 level in the old covenant. But here in the new covenant, in my least condition, I'm greater than the 10s. Because it's a whole new deal of intimacy with the fullness of your presence. And God, in the name of Jesus, I'm going to get over, if you'll help me, I want to get over the idea that you're about to pound me. I want to get over the idea that you're going to get mad at me. I want to get over the idea, well, I've gone too far. I want to get over the idea that, oh, you're just ready to flip me in the abyss. I want to get over the fact that, God, yeah, I want to get over that. And I want to know your heart tonight. And I want you to embrace me. And I want to feel, I don't want to be afraid of you anymore. I want to be able to kick off my shoes and just say, oh, I'm going to lounge in your arms and let you pull me into your heart. And you and me be together in some kind of new species of humanity that can literally live a life that would be so phenomenal it would shake its world. I'm tired of being a 4-year-old who's always worried about, oh, I wonder if my dad's going to beat me. Would you help us to grow up? Heads are bowed. Why is it so hard for you to accept the fact that Jesus loves you? And you're not in trouble. The file has been thrown away. And there's a party going on. Why are you living in struggle? And why do you have all of this feeling of guilt? Why do you always feel like, well, I just don't measure up? Why are you still in the 4-year-old category with the 1 to 10 deal? because they never quite measure up, because there's always somebody beyond. And why can't you just come and be least? Fall in his arms, and everything's safe, and it's all okay, and he's going to pump his life into you. And why are you always looking over your shoulder? And why are you always trying harder? And why are you always so stressed out about, well, I should have, or I shouldn't have, or I... What's the deal? Why don't you grow up? Would you be open to him flowing his nature into your entire system of life? Energizing, enlivening, quickening, generating. Be filled with him. Moments of seeking.